Now, a guy that we've been waiting to get back in the ring, and another guy that was rumored to fight a lightweight boxer, Shakur Stevenson, who recently retired but now is back. Frank Martin is going to be fighting arguably the best lightweight in the world in Gervonta Tank Davis. This is reportedly set for the springtime or summer, but this fight, apparently both sides have agreed to it. Bryan, your thoughts on this fight? And it's actually going to be one of the pay-per-views that are going to be on Amazon as well.
Yeah, one of many. Oh, wait, there's only been one announced so far. So maybe should get on that. Again, skeptical that the deal is going to work out because I don't know if Amazon particularly cares about boxing like that. But we could discuss that at a later date at another time. Hopefully it goes well, obviously, because you want to see boxing thrive on big platforms and you want to see big platforms give a shit about the sport. So we'll see what happens there. Nonetheless, this is a good fight. This is a legitimately really good fight. I also think Frank Martin is in trouble because we saw what he looked like recently in his most recent fight. And Gervonta Davis, as expected, because boxing is boxing, it looked like, wow, 2 fights by the end of April. Fought Hector Luis Garcia last year in January, fought Ryan Garcia in April. Wow, Gervonta Davis might get a third fight in. We might actually have a champion fight 3 times in a year. And that did not happen. And now it looks like it's going to be a year plus until we actually see him in the ring, because when they say spring summer in boxing, it's usually not the spring. This is probably going to be in the summer, but we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully it's sooner than later. Frank Martin, look, undefeated, had his coming out party against was Michelle Ali Rivera, right? And this was a big sort of nerdy showbox main event. 2 undefeated guys. Frank Martin was actually, I believe, the underdog, or at least the B side in that fight, and just picked them apart, beat them by decision. That was sort of his coming out party, and it established him as one of the premier challengers in this division. And then last year, he had a fight that he absolutely should not have won,
Yeah.
and won by unanimous decision. I remember watching this when I was on vacation, and I was just like, as somebody who bet Frank Martin to win that fight, I think I bet him by decision. I was relieved because, again, in boxing, you don't bet based on honor. You bet on who you think is going to get the decision, not necessarily who you think is going to win. So he gets that fight. His opponent did take a knee in round 12. I don't remember how to pronounce his opponent's name, but it's fine. We'll live.
Yeah, Frank Martin does have power, though. I think he has 12 knockouts. He's 18-0, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong.
Yes. No, you're right.
18-0, 12 knockouts. He does have power, so this could also be a fire fight. But I also think at the same time, Frank Martin
I
might try
don't
to
think
play
so.
I think he'll try to play it safe. Frank Martin is skilled. This is the biggest fight in his career, and we've kind of been waiting for Frank Martin. He kind of had his come out party, but he didn't really. Like, he doesn't really have
Yeah.
those type of names on his resume. So if he's able to do some work against Gervonta Tank Davis, who, in my opinion, is the best lightweight, because he's proven it time and time again. And not only that, but he is a face of boxing. He's a reason to watch pay-per-view. There's not a lot of fighters where you're like, hey, let me check out this pay-per-view. Gervonta Tank Davis is that dude. And I think if Frank Martin, because I go back to Tank and Rolly. Rolly fought good in that fight until Tank set a trap and knocked his ass out. Him and Ryan had good moments in that fight against Tank until Tank hit him with that liver shot. Boom. Came out of nowhere. So Frank Martin, I think, does have a chance in this fight, and he does have power, right? And I'm going back and I'm thinking, is this the most, like, where would you rank Frank Martin's power of the power punchers that Tank Davis has fought? Because I'd say it's up there.
I don't think it's particularly high at
Yeah.
all. Relative,
It's not devastating power, but he does have power.
it's not Isak Cruz, it's not Rolly Romero, it's not Yuriokis Gamboa even. Like, I don't like, from being like, I don't think Frank Martin is that kind of dude. I think he's like, he can hurt you, obviously, but I think it's a different type of fighter. And I think in this fight in particular, he's going to try to use, height, reach, length, and fight Gervonta Davis from a distance. Like, I'm not expecting him to engage in a firefight. That would be dumb for him to do that, right?
Yeah.
5'8", 68-inch reach, Gervonta Davis, 67-ish inch reach, 5'5". Some people would joke that he's 5'2". So I don't think Frank Martin's going to fight this fight on the inside, and I do think Gervonta Davis would love that because I think he's going to try to hurt Frank Martin to the body, um, and really sort of handicap that power that he has. But I don't see Frank Martin as like this big punching lightweight really at
No,
all.
he doesn't have raw devastating power, but I do think he has power that will break you down round by round. He's skilled, he can get to the body, he does a lot of things really well. Frank Martin, I think if he can have a good performance in this fight, he'll probably get good other big fights. I'm guessing. I mean, he turned down Shakur Stevenson. Um,
And I wanted to bring that up because supposedly the rumor was that he turned down Shakur Stevenson, and Shakur Stevenson even accused him of this. He turned down Shakur Stevenson because he was gonna get the Tank fight. Excuse me,
okay.
professional broadcaster. And if he got the Tank fight, it was gonna be this whole thing, whatever. And he basically shot that down. I think he may have even called Shakur a liar. I don't know, whatever. Because everybody, listen, this is why there are like four actual boxing reporters on the planet. Everybody in the sport is lying, and it's just easier to just talk about the shit as opposed to reporting on it for a lot of people. I think that Gervonta Davis, uh, being Frank Martin's option here is a smart financial one. I also think it's incredibly risky for obvious reasons, but it's one you have to take. You have to be the champ. You have to try to be the champ. And Frank Martin, while we could talk about coming out party, not coming out party, the bottom line is he's almost 30 years old and he's still seen as a prospect. So it's like you got to go at some point, right? He's about
Yeah.
the same age as Gervonta Davis. I
And
don't
we've
know
been
what.
saying this. We've been saying that he has to go for like 3 years now. We've been saying like he's got to get it going. He's got to get it going. So he's finally getting this big, massive fight against Gervonta Tank Davis,
One
and I
fight last year, also one. I hate that shit when
and
up
not
and
a fight where he
comers.
looked very good in.
Right.
Not a fight
One.
he looked very good in.
I hate that shit when up and comers or guys who is perceived as up and comers fight once in a calendar year.
I do think this is pay per view worthy, though. In my opinion, I would buy a pay per view for Tank Davis and Frank Martin. That's a fight that I would be very interested in seeing on pay per view because I think it's worth it. And I'm guessing the PBC card will be good because we're getting a pretty good one coming up as well. So I'm hoping for this one to be a really good card as well.
It's going to be pay per view because it's Tank, and I think that's enough reason to put him on pay per view because he's one of the only guys that you could put on pay per view and expect to do reasonably well at this point. Like the whole point of him fighting Ryan Garcia was because whoever won that fight and lost that fight actually, because I didn't think the loser was going to lose all that much in terms of cachet, because it would be one loss. But the reason why that fight was so captivating was because both of these guys are legitimate two of the only pay-per-view stars or guys that you could sell as pay-per-view stars. Now, does Tank cross over in that mainstream type of way? I don't know. I feel like he kind of does. I
He
feel like he
does.
kind of does amongst other athletes. I feel like he does amongst fans, and he's one of the only guys in boxing who could do that. So if this is a pay-per-view fight, and I'm pretty sure we both agree that it will be, it's because of Tank Davis. It's nothing to do with Frank Martin. If Frank
It,
Martin wins this fight in an upset, it'll be one of the most shocking outcomes in boxing in recent years. It'll be a humongous upset, and it'll probably establish him as somebody who's like a legit star, depending on how it gets done. I don't necessarily see that happening, though, with respect to Frank Martin's ability.
I think there's only two guys, and this is no disrespect to Bud because before Bud fought Spence, there was so much talk. Could Bud sell pay per views? That was the big conversation that was being had. We knew how good Bud was, right? But I think there's only really two guys that you look for on pay per view, and that's Canelo Alvarez and Gervonta Tank Davis. Really, who else are you going to put in that top tier that makes that type of bread? I like now you're gonna put Bud for sure, but before Bud fought Spence, who would you say? I think it's only Canelo and Tank.
I think you have to put Inoue there. And I know that's not like
Yeah.
maybe it's not
And
in
he
a
hasn't even had those pay-per-view fights, right? We've gotten
right.
those fights on ESPN. Like
ESPN
they're not
Plus, yeah.
putting, yeah.
Maybe
So
maybe not in a maybe not in America, but he is a mega like the dude who gets the most numbers for our YouTube channel,
it's more because
which
he's
is
an
which is a
international star,
which is a
right?
small right, but that matters,
Yeah, but at the
like
same time, there's not a lot of coverage of In a Way anywhere else. Like you really go look for it, and it's like a lot of people reporting on him, and there's not that content. And like we've talked about this, Brian, a lot of people don't want to touch boxing at times, right? And
yeah.
in a way, as much as we're boxing nerds and we know his name and we know he's a superstar, if you go to a casual fan and you're like, "Hey, do you know Gervonta Tank Davis or do you know In a Way?" Who are they going to say they know? I guarantee you they're
Here,
gonna say Tank. Here, yeah,
sure,
yeah.
here, but
And
internationally though, like Italy is that
that's
big.
different though. But like the mandatory is here in North America, right? So
Well,
I'm
no, it's
saying
technically it's worldwide because
no.
there's
Well,
information.
you
I know
don't
what
live
you mean.
worldwide. You live in New York. I live in Vancouver, right? So what I'm saying, we're based here in North America, right? It's I mean, you could say international because I'm in Canada, so it is
Right.
essentially an
There you go.
international show. But in a sense that we're both in North America, like if we were to ask any of our friends who they knew between the two, I highly doubt anyone's going to say Inoue. And I just mean in terms of pay per view, none of Inoue's fights have been on pay per view over here in North
I get
America.
what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Another guy I would say is maybe
It's really a
Maybe
it's
Tyson Fury as well.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can get that on there.
I think Tyson Fury. It's really a North America versus international thing. North America specific, the list is probably Canelo Alvarez, Tank Davis, Tyson Fury. I would throw on there. Terrence
Yeah,
Crawford. I'm obviously throwing on there. Um, and the list might end there. I don't think Teofimo
yeah.
Lopez is at that point.
I think he could be, but not yet to that
I think he
standard.
was on that way until he fought stupidly against George Kambosos and lost that fight.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But
God.
here at the mandatory, we want to know your thoughts on Gervonta Tank Davis fighting Frank Martin. Let us know. Drop your comments below. Also follow us on our social media channels. We're at the mandatory TKO, and also hit that like and subscribe button if you like the content. All right, Brian. Any final thoughts before we get up and out of here?
Yeah, Floyd Mayweather recently said he still think he's the face of boxing, and honestly, can you say that he's wrong?
We're gonna
I
leave
think
you on that note. Yeah,
I
we're
think
gonna.
it's Terrence Crawford, but I'm not gonna argue with Floyd.
I think you could still argue it's Canelo to be the
Sure,
face of boxing still.
sure.
But
But
for
Floyd
sure,
is in the conversation, and that's a problem.